Hi, everyone. Welcome to the new normal. I'm your host, Lisa Davis, aka Litecoin Lisa. Today is Wednesday, so we have some great New Eden health and micronutrition information. Today, Dr. McDaniel is going to talk to us about the costs involved with your health. And I did want to touch base with you guys and let everybody know on the channel here that I had an opportunity to interview with Jay Snip for and or Joe and Jean-Claude over on Beyond Mystic 3. And you guys should really check out that interview. We talked a lot about some of the stuff that we believe will be happening kind of towards the end of the year and some things that are happening currently. So that was a lot of fun catching up with those guys and a lot of the friends and magical internet friends in the community in the chat. So check that out, and be right back with Dr. McDaniel right after this. Welcome back, Dr. McDaniel. Happy holidays.
Thank you.
We are, I was excited to see that you're talking about health and costs this time. I know everybody is really feeling it. Chair Powell came out with another report today, and I guess unemployment is rising, and people are really feeling it this time around the holidays when they're wanting to buy Christmas gifts, but people are having issues with their health, and the price of everything is just rising with inflation.
Well, I gave a series on the blue zones that the World Health Organization has identified. In these blue zones, the people lived up into the 90s independently, needing no help from anyone. And even about past 100, fact is, one of the blue zones, there was a lady in Okinawa, an island, was 116 years. And importantly was that these people had good health. And there were some characteristics of each of these blue zones that are common, is that in their daily task, they got their exercises done by either farming or fishing, or they don't have the utilities that we have in our home now, like I was using as a washing machine, how that has progressed from a pot with wood under it to heat my grandmother had, to the point that my wife just has to put it in the little door and then move it over to the dryer. And you don't even have to take the heavy wet clothes out and put them on the clothesline anymore. So we have all types of exercise clubs and facilities around, because that was one of the things that's common. And what I was trying to point out, that not only are their diets very important in terms of low meat and high vegetables and fruits and nuts and berries, that you don't have to move to one of these blue zones or isolated areas. Like one of them was the island of Sardinia, and they said that there had been very little change in lifestyle since Roman periods. So in their daily tasks, they got their exercise, and the diet was important. And they pointed out the lifestyles in all these blue zones were similar. Well, you can do that you're in home, because I have spent 38 years developing the contents of what we talk about improving the diet. And New Eden is the name of the product. But what we basically are doing are putting back into the diet nutrient molecules that were commonly in the family garden or orchard, and they don't exist anymore. And to have fruits and vegetables in the markets now, and the national chains, they have to pick them green, so they'll have a shipping life and a shelf life. And when you pick them green, the principal molecule in the plant or fruit is chlorophyll. And chlorophyll is a wonderful molecule, but it's not required by the genes in cellular synthesis to make bioactive structure function molecules that run the biochemistry and the physiology of life. And one of the things about if you choose this type of diet and lifestyles from these blue zones, you decrease your healthcare costs. And in this period of inflation that is eating people's budgets, you either have to increase your income or you need to decrease your costs in the family. And that nutrition is one of the most common and accessible and a way to exert your freedom of what you eat and your choices, and they should be healthy. And that's this decreases the cost, because if you've got somebody in your family that has to go to the doctor on a regular basis, you got to stress on your budget. If you have to go to the hospital, you got anything that you got saved, it will take it. If you have to go into ICU, the cost may be so high that in a lifetime you can't cover all the costs. So very important that you can, in your diet and style, and make changes in your life. That one of the things I point out is a lot of these things, you know about it. The problem is doing it. And we're trying to make it simple, particularly in terms of the dietary, by adding with each meal a scoop of the fruits and vegetables that are vine ripened and frozen to preserve the enzymatic activity of the multiple nutrients that your genes call for proper synthesis for having good health. And one of the things I wanted to point out is that in the United States, healthcare costs are essentially exploitive. There's the attitude, the cost be damned. We're saving lives, and people are living longer, or living for things that used to cause death. Well, this has resulted that the World Health Organization says that the United States has the highest healthcare cost in the world. And number two is less than half of what the expense is in the United States. And periodically they do a survey of all the members of the United Nations for quality of life and health status of all the nations. And we come in, the last time my figures have, is number 35th among about a little over 100 nations in quality of life and health. And one of the things is that we are so drug oriented in this country, and our healthcare costs are so high that we need to do something to reduce it. And one of the ways is your lifestyle, and add what you used to get in the family garden and orchard by taking the New Eden. And this is a way to attack the problems of inflation. And our first slide, if we will go to it now, points out various problems that we're facing. For number one, I'm putting in inflation. I mean, the cost I noticed in the store that the price of eggs are more than double, and the gasoline in some places is 2 and 3 times what it was a year ago. And for our country, we're involved in supporting with tax money that we're putting in there the war in Ukraine and also Israel. And then we've got this threat looming, and things are being done that we think China is going to try to take Taiwan back into their country. And there are people living on the sidewalk in streets in major cities, and big problems. And you wonder what's happening with these demonstrations and burning of buildings and protest. We have millions of immigrants that have no talents or ability to maintain a job coming across the thousands daily. And then we have facing that there are nations that say we've got so much national debt, and there's been so much inflation on what the U.S. dollar can purchase that they're putting together little networks to use something for international exchange, like for oil and gas and other things that they don't want to use the U.S. dollar, and that can be a terrible fact to us that our dollars won't be worth as much, even if you got some saved. You're having to face that, and then we've had the pandemic with the virus that we don't know for sure where it came from, but we had all these mandatory government actions thrown at us. Now we're finding out that those mandatory things of a mask and distance are not effective, and people are being denying that they were responsible for it and saying they had the wrong information, and we're having to deal with that. And that were actually small businesses that failed.
Mm-hmm.
And during this pandemic, it was we found out that they shut down churches and doctors' offices and elective surgery, and made the abortion clinics and the stores that sell alcohol as essential. And
Yeah.
we wonder what in the world is going on.
And they paid over, I think it was 200 million to Planned Parenthood from government money during that time.
Yes. And then we were having a lot of on TV showing that the head of our government is old and has reduced capacities, and we have people saying he's incompetent, and other people saying just the opposite. And then I told you about that the World Health Organization says we rank number one in the world, about $10,300 per person, and it's rapidly rising.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we're talking about what to do. And I might at this point say that I'm very much in favor of capitalism and profits and patents and innovations, but I'm opposed to exploitation. And the price of drugs, I got furious this last week. Then on CBS, they showed that the problem of postpartum depression, of the mothers getting very depressed after they deliver a baby and even commit suicide. And they've come up with a new drug that you take for 2 weeks to a month that will correct this, and 100% of it only costs $14,000.
Oh my God.
Serious. And then we have this hepatitis C. They've come out with a drug for it, and you see it on TV that's being promoted, and you find out that you take it for 3 months and it costs about $50,000. Well, an index that you know you're being exploited is that every time you go to a doctor and they're going to write out a prescription, you ought to ask, is it on the pharmacy list for the low price drugs? Because when they go out of patent and they're not patented and other people can make it, companies bid for this drug to be able to offer it for a new price, and where it was costing $200 or $300 a prescription, under this list it can cost maybe from $10 to $50, which gives you a hint to if they're going to make a profit when they sell it to you for $10 to $50, that when it was being charged, let's say $250 to $300 for a prescription, that you're being taken to the cleaners financially.
Wow.
And let's go to the next slide. But these are some of the challenges we face and why you either need to make more money or you need to reduce your cost in the family. And one of the ways to do it is to way you can reduce healthcare costs. And I know it works because we had a metal fabrication company in Iowa, and the owners recognized that there was the benefits of more comprehensive nutrition as can be found in dietary supplements. And so with their employees, they made a deal that they would pay 50% of the cost if the employee would take it. Well, it wasn't long until that one of the employees had a wife that had hepatitis C so bad that she was on the liver transplant list. And she was seeing the doctor about twice a week, and all her enzymes for the liver were going up. And it was a very touchy situation because there's not a lot of people around donating a liver or for donation of livers. And she got on the more comprehensive nutrition that gives the body cells what they need to try to move to the normal zone. And her enzymes began to go down, and they finally came to the point that they were normal. And they did liver biopsies. Instead of scar tissue and sick cells, they saw young, robust cells, and she was taken off the transplant list due to more comprehensive nutrition that gave her cells what they need to heal and regenerate the liver. And at that time, I found out something that I hadn't known, that any group like this metal fabrication probably had about 300 that they were paying fees for the healthcare costs, that they add for every individual that has a organ transplant $1 million of healthcare costs that they will probably incur before they die, and that is added to the group costs and their premiums. We also had a hospital administrator that her husband did so well that she looked into this, how it can decrease costs. And they had about 5 or 6 hospitals with employees, several hundred, that she wanted to start a thing that they would provide through at no cost to all the hospital employees, more comprehensive nutrition. And this came before the physician boards in all these facilities, and they raised a protest against it because they said a significant amount of their income came from hospital employees that had deviations in their health, and they didn't want the chain to do this because it would be such a financial reduction for all the staff doctors. Well, they had such an influence that this administrator had to rapidly turn around and not do it because she was going to be fired. So you can see that, that when I say exploitation by the sickness industry, we need as individuals in everyday life find out some way to decrease healthcare costs. And this is one of the ways that we're going to explore this. The next slide, please. Now, we had a pharmacy chain that had about 30 different pharmacists in these pharmacy thing. And one of their big problems was that when there was some type of epidemic in the community, usually viral, they came in for prescriptions for to reduce their symptoms and make them feel better, because sometimes they even gave them some antiviral drugs. But the pharmacist would catch what the patients have and be sick and couldn't come to work. And the problem that they had was there aren't hot and cold running pharmacists available like on your faucet in the sink. Right. They're not available. And if they were able to find one, they weren't familiar with where everything was in the pharmacy, and they were not very efficient. So the principal person decided, we're going to make this available to all the pharmacists, more comprehensive nutrition like is available in the New Eden that we talk about, and you can get through this organization that Lisa Davis has put together. And I got a report from them that they went 3 years without having a health problem in the pharmacists, that they couldn't come to work. Mm-hmm. And I was trying to get them to put this data all together and let's publish it. and they started on the manuscript, and all of a sudden they realized that they were dispensing FDA approved drugs from these pharmaceutical companies, and that this would be a great stress on their ability to continue their relationships with all the drug companies, and that they were afraid that even the State Association of Pharmacists would be negative toward this, so it was never done.
Wow.
And we're talking about costs and income and what you need to do to try to improve in your family. And that's just the story of the pharmacy chain that got a reduction in health problems, and it can be carried right into the family. I get reports that the children that were having constant things that they picked up in school as a virus, and coming home sick and couldn't go to school, that by adding this more comprehensive nutrition to the diet, to the daily meals, that they no longer were coming home sick all the time, because this supports the body's innate health prevention mechanisms that can be active if you have the proper dietary intake. Next slide, please. I told you about the hospital chain and the female administrator, and the story of how her husband did so well after years of problems with multiple doctors and multiple drugs, and more comprehensive nutrition supported the engineering and design of life that is in the DNA, or the chromosomes, of the 46 chromosomes in the patient. And this reduced the costs. And this was the story of this hospital chain and this administrator that nearly got fired for trying to provide this in some manner to all the hospital employees, because they were in an environment where there was recurrent infections, and they couldn't come to work. And this is a real problem for when you have multiple hospitals and several thousand or 100 patients. Next slide, please. Now, this was a study of a little nursing home in West Texas that decided that this was important. In fact, they published their thing, and I put it there at the official proceedings in September of 2004. And it was made up of 16 frail patients. There were 14 were females and 2 males. And by adding this to the diet, they had an 81% improvement in the health of the group.
Wow.
Now, 5 even decreased their medications. They were doing so well. 44% improved their minimal health status form that is used to determine their level of health. 37% improved mental abilities by status tests. There was a 122% reduction of infection, 22% reduction in infections,
Sorry, I had my cursor up there.
50% reduction in the diabetes, those that had diabetes, and their hemoglobin A1Cs, which is the gold standard for diabetics, it came down, which was very good, because that high sugar level is toxic to the endothelial cells in the capillaries, and that's why type 2 diabetics have infections or decreased circulation to their toes, their feet, their legs, and have amputations. Well, this is very good that by more comprehensive nutrition, that this was turned around, and that their blood glucose levels were lower. So there, in this group at this hospital, there were no adverse effects are declining of health status by adding this to the diet. You're always looking for negative things if you can. If you really step back and think about it, the father of pharmacology, Paracelsus' most famous statement was, all drugs are poisons. Benefit depends on the dose. And that's the reason that pharmaceuticals work. They interfere with the engineering and design of life. And like in antibiotics, but drug interferes with the biochemistry of the infectious agent. However, it also, if you, each little organism that's an infectious agent has some similarities to the cells in the body. So when you're poisoning infectious agents, you're stressing your good cells in your body because the biochemistry of cells has some similarity to the biochemistry even in infectious agents. Well, more comprehensive nutrition doesn't work like that. It doesn't do a thing to the organism. What it does, it boosts the body's natural gene controlled mechanisms of host defense. And so, one of the really benefits of this is that antibiotics can become drug resistant organisms. Well, that factor isn't even involved when you use more comprehensive nutrition to boost the body's ability to make antibodies, to release gamma interferon and interleukins, and boost the body's inflammatory response against the organisms. And this is a way to support the engineering and design of life rather than poison it with a pharmaceutical drug. But this report on this group of patients in this small hospital in West Texas, that they figured there was a saving of $36,670 due to decreased and medication supplies, labor, state fines, and legal fees. That they have inspectors that come in and inspect these facilities, and by the increased quality of life of the patients, they weren't getting fined for deleterious care. So this was an interesting report that shows that more comprehensive nutrition increases the quality of life. Next slide, please.
That's a significant annual savings per patient. If you look at 16 patients, that's a great study.
Yes. Now, this relates to, I was lecturing in Atlanta, and at the end of the thing, a professional was just really pushy that he wanted to drive me to the airport and let's go now. And kind of, I got my stuff together and all. What he wanted to do was to talk to me without people around, because his was a specialist to do total removal of teeth when people had bad gingivitis and infections of their gums, and to put in these new types of teeth that are attached to the bone. What he wanted to tell me is that these patients that have such bad dental health is an indication that their whole body has bad health. That he said you can look in the mouth and look at the tissues and the teeth and the gums and consider the joints of the jaws, and you can predict the status of the health of the individual, because the condition of the mouth is just a reflection of the state of health of the whole body. Well, what he found out that if he could take topical aloe mannan, which is the key ingredient that's in New Eden, and with little tiny, look like kind of little Christmas trees, you dip them. They're interdigital brushes. You could dip them into this topical dietary supplement that uses Ace Manning, and go between the teeth and all, and save the teeth and restore the health, because you also gave it to them to the orally, and their body began to heal and take care of the infection, and they didn't have to have all their teeth removed.
Wow.
We had a similar report from a dental clinic in California that they found out that with the little interdigital brush and taking the topical Ace Manning product, which is more comprehensive nutrition, that the gum infections, the cysts below the teeth, the abscesses, and a bone that was going away, that all this reversed, and they got healthy bone to support their teeth. The teeth tightened up in the sockets, and the jawbone density increased. And that bone density is very important, because we found out even particularly women getting osteoporosis or decreased calcification of the spine, that by taking more comprehensive nutrition, as we see here, is the mouth is a reflection of what can go on in the body, that these people with osteoporosis totally reversed it. So we were seeing that the dental surgeon that kidnapped me in Atlanta, that not only was on the other side of the country where they're getting that type of response, but as he said, the mouth is in its condition, of the gums and the bones, is a reflection of the status of health of the entire body. And as I was pointing out, when they're talking about the increased bone density of the jaw, that lo and behold, we found out that by doing this, that the individuals that were periodically going to doctors and not getting much benefit by adding more calcium in different forms, that by adding more of the aloe Ace Manning formulation that can be taken orally, that they would increase their bone density. Next slide, please. As I'm pointing out, we have had multiple cases of the improvement and reduction of how they have to go to the doctor's office, and that this is a financial cost that is reduced. I particularly remember a case of up in New England, that was going to Harvard once a month to get injections of gamma globulins to make his body have more protection and all. And by going on a more comprehensive nutrition that's present in the New Eden, they took him in, and they had never seen his gamma globulin levels so high, and whereas he had been susceptible to all types of infections very easily in contact with anyone, his body's host defense was elevated too, in addition to the fact that he no longer needed gamma globulin injections. And so many things that are offered in conventional medicine, you have toxic effects. And in fact, I mentioned to you that Paracelsus, the father of pharmacology, said all drugs are poisons. It depends on the dose. Well, that's the first stage of approval for any new drug. It's called phase 1 toxicity studies. And you got to find out how much of anything that you want to make a drug will kill half the animals, and how much will kill all the animals. And there must be a wide window between 50% and 100% of killing of the animals before they'll let you proceed to phase 2 in new drug development. Well, that shouldn't be very comforting to know.
No, it shouldn't.
This has to be done. And of course, in our research, that I was involved in trying to make aloe-ace mannan, which is in the products that I'm talking to you about. We were kicked out of the FDA new drug approval process because we couldn't kill anything. We couldn't give them an LD50 and LD100. It was a 100% no toxicity in multiple species of animals. And finally, college students at the University of Texas taking 3,000 milligrams a day. And then also it was sterilized and injected into medical students in Houston, 50 of them, and there was no evidence of toxicity to any of the organs. And we had all this data and got kicked out because we couldn't show any toxicity, which all drugs have. And fortunately, in 1994, they passed the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act. And we realized that the active ingredient from the aloe plant that we were trying to make a drug was an ingredient that could be added to a dietary supplement. And so that's what we've done. Mm-hmm. Next slide, please. Well, I've given you multiple examples, and I told you about our efforts to try to make a drug for the company Carrington Laboratories. And when the Supplement Act of 94, it's called DSHEA for short, as the original copies that went out had a very short paragraph at the end that it was called the preamble. And there was a great celebration within the dietary supplement industry and those that believed in it, that because the first statement said in the first paragraph, optimal nutrition has been scientifically shown to be essential for good health, to prevent disease, and to restore health. Well, you might quick say, well, what more would you want from dietary supplements than something that supported good health, prevented disease, and restored health? Well, I found out from a constitutional attorney that the preamble is just a statement of why the legislation was considered and hearings were held. It is not a part of the DSHEA law, because in the labeling section of the DSHEA Act is a statement basically that no dietary supplement can claim to treat, cure, or correct an abnormal health condition. And that is the law and is enforced by the FDA, and the company that for a decade that I was a consultant physician medical director was fined $10 million based on this statement in the law that we had distributors basically saying I was told I was going to die. I took these dietary supplements and it turned around my health. I'm very healthy now. And then they would put in their emails, don't do what your doctor tells you to do, it'll kill you. Well, that was a violation not only of the federal act in the DSHEA, but also the professional act in the states. And so that's why the company was fined $10 million, and it was a very destructive act. So you can't claim through nutrition or any natural products to turn around and improve a disease. However, what we say is we don't treat or cure anything with improved nutrition. All we do is just improve the content of the diet and turn it over to the patient's genes in cellular synthesis to produce the effect. And all of this occurs at the atom and molecule level, which is a microcosmos, which human beings can't be influencing, and it's done by the body itself in its biochemistry and physiology. And all we do is just improve the diet content with more comprehensive nutrition. Next slide, please. Uh, One of the things that happened as medical director for a decade, what I call the white box effect. And what this is that apparently there's an innate wisdom of the body. I don't know whether it's coded in the genes or where the source of this is, but if a person has, say, 5 deviations from normal health, that the first one to be improved will be the one that is most likely to be lethal or destructive to the health.
Mm-hmm.
And that's usually an infection or any type of infectious agent. People don't realize that before antibiotics and sulfur drugs, the number one cause of death in the United States was infections. Well, it's not that now because we have antibiotics and sulfurs, which have changed it so that chronic diseases like atherosclerosis that causes heart attacks and strokes are more common. And unfortunately, and it's fortunately improving, that lifestyle that included burning tobacco leaves and drawing it into the lungs cause chronic disease, cause cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And this has become a big cause of death in the United States, and it's a terrible economic load on the family to do this. Well, this white box effect, that would be the next thing usually that would improve after if they had chronic infection, would be deviations from normal cell development. And it would go down to finally their dandruff or their toe itch or their jock itch would be death. So the minimal things would be last. It'd be a step, rather than the black box effect, which the FDA has for some of the most toxic drugs that people take. I call this the white box effect, and it's just a theory. And we had an opportunity, and we put together a major protocol for a clinic in Kerala, India, in cooperation with the Catholic Church of India, which I might add is not part of the Catholic Church out of Rome. And this Bishop Abraham Karnak wrote a pamphlet that there were more citizens in India living in abject poverty, less than $1 a day. Millions of them that were not the resources in India to build the medical schools and schools of nursing to train the personnel to take care of these millions, much less practice Western medicine and its cost. Well, he apparently understood a presentation I made for the United Nations Office for Food and Agriculture in Rome, which was entitled "A Economic Way to Provide Improved Health for Mass Populations." And that's the type of thing that the World Health Organization, which is related to the United Nations, an agency under it, that they were responsible for the world health and conditions. And so they invited me to give this lecture. And I might add, if you would like a summary of that lecture, that if you will send me a email, I will send you a copy of what was done for the United Nations Office of Food and Agriculture in Rome about how this is of such benefit. Well, back to the white box effect, Bishop Karnak tried to get funds to conduct this dietary study. And he first went to very successful Indians in the United States that had money, and they would not contribute or donate to this study. So then he went to the Arab immigrants because royal families in the oil producing countries are responsible for the health of the entire nation. and says, if you'll give the money for us to do this study in Kerala, we will give you the data, and it will decrease the healthcare costs of your entire Arab immigrant nations. Well, they wouldn't come up with the money, and so this protocol and this potential study, because the idea was to test the white box effect, and if it showed it, to spread it to all the states in India, because it would be the lowest cost, most efficient, safe, and effective way, because nutrition supports engineering and design of life as is coded in DNA. And I might add that the code of our genes, the logic that's there is to move the biochemistry to the normal zone. And what we mean by that is it's kind of like the thermostat on your wall, that when it gets cold, the heater turns on. When it gets hot, when the heater turns on when it's cold. When it gets hot, the air conditioning turns on to cool things. Well, it's not a comfort zone that the genes are programmed for. They're programmed for a normal zone of balance in all the cells of the biochemistry. And if you have the nutrients, you can, if it needs to be increased activity or the amount of the substance that the cell makes, because each cell is essentially a little factory that makes molecules that are bioactive, that are structure function molecules for the physiology of the body. And if it's not enough, the genes turn on to make more. And if it's too much, the genes are turned off if you have the nutrient molecules to make the biochemical units that will do this phenomenon. So that's unfortunately sitting there needing to be done. But what it is it would prove that dietary supplementation is safe, effective, and economical, like no other approach. And you can do this in your family or as an individual already and get the benefit. You need to add exercise personally. And then in lifestyles, you need to avoid toxic activities that are harmful to the body, like smoking and excess alcohol intake, which are the big challenges that we have in the United States, and illegal drugs. And as I point out over and over again, as proof of that, our society is so drug oriented, whether it be legal or illegal, that all these deaths due to fentanyl that's coming from Mexico, these individuals chose or made a decision, were trying to take some drug that a physician had not recommended, and it had been laced with fentanyl, but they chose these illegal drugs that cause their own death, because fentanyl is not like a blood-sucking bat and will attack you and inject in you fentanyl. No, you have to choose it. And we need to recognize, just like what Paracelsus said, all drugs are poison, and move to supporting the engineering and design of life that is present in some degree, that we have found over and over again with adding New Eden to your diet. Well, I hope that I have gotten that across. And again, if you have any questions or if you want a copy of that presentation that was made to the United Nations sponsored conference on the benefits of this, my email is at the bottom there, capital R and then MCDANIEL. We use that capital R because you put a little R there right next to the M. Sometimes people can't see it, and they just put McDaniel with Wellness Quest, and that doesn't work. So we put a big R, then McDaniel Wellness Quest, and I welcome your questions, your comments, and as I said, I'll be happy to give you a copy of the scientific poster that was a reflection of the lecture that was given for the United Nations. So this is a way to improve health and decrease healthcare costs, and proof that it has been shown to be beneficial and to work. And that's the topic that we've covered today.
Thank you. Yeah, when they're afraid to talk about it in their own circles, or when the wolves are surrounding, the pharmacists. That's when those are the things we need to be looking at. And it's sad that what's considered the wellness industry is pushing back on alternative, why food or nutrition is considered alternative
Yes.
is strange. That something's broken there. But I do appreciate you bringing this information. The savings was significant as well, on that, the research or the study that they did at the nursing home, for just 16 patients, almost $40,000 in a year savings. And of course, the quality of life, you can't put a number on that. So I think that's
Well, let
significant.
me add to that decreased song that I should have included in this and forgot to put it in as a slide. We had a internist at a Air Force base that was seeing in the clinic a group of retired Air Force personnel that were type 2 diabetics. And he reported at a conference on 281 that he improved the quality of life of these diabetics and decreased all the biomarkers of diabetes and improved the quality of life, and estimated that the reduced drugs alone and visits to the complications of diabetes, that it was about a 40% reduction in cost for that group compared to another group in the same thing that the internist thought it was hokey to consider that. He used only drugs, and the drugs weren't denied to the group in this study that had the 40% reduction. It's just they didn't need the drugs, and they were all even for high blood pressure and other things, that the amount required went down with more comprehensive nutrition as is provided in the New Eden dietary supplement that we recommend people take about a scoop with each meal, and it will work better if you take it in yogurt to improve the bacteria in your gut. Well, there's worldwide research going on now that will be another step of difficulty for people that are so drug oriented that your bacteria in your large bowel contribute can, if they're the right bacteria, to improving your health. And that's a very economical way through your diet to add yogurt and the lactobacillus that are there, that are friendly bacteria that support the engineering and design of life of the individual.
Well, and that leads right into what I was going to kind of close with, which is when you sign up for auto ship right now, you can sign up for 6 months at a time. It renews the auto ship, and you will receive a monthly supply of probiotic. And so that gives you that good, healthy bacteria into your gut system. So you have it all taken care of right there. You get your New Eden, go to wellnessquest.org, and you can also ask questions. If you have any deviations from normal with your health, there's an opportunity when you place your order to put that down. And if they have any studies or information about that, Dr. McDaniel or his staff there will get information to you on that as well. So make sure to check that out. There's lots of other great products there as well, and a book from Dr. McDaniel called The Gift. So you guys have a great day, and we'll see you next time here at The New Normal.
Very